What's going on, YouTube? So today we're going to be talking about Spyderco. I know that the Para 3, Para 2, Military 2 are maybe the most popular, but the Manix is definitely up there with them. And there's real good reason for that. This knife has completely changed my opinions on Spyderco. This knife has changed my opinions on knives in general. And because of that, I'm making this video today in hopes to reach some newer knife enthusiasts, but also, if you're like me, I'm sure most of you love talking about Spyderco and hearing people talk about it anyway, so you might just tune in just to hear my 2 cents. And so what I want to say is that there's a Spyderco for everybody. Before I got the Manix 2, I I was not a fan of Spyderco. Um, I've been a knife collector for, I would say, around 7 years. I've been carrying a knife since I was like 15 years old. But when you're a kid, you'll forget it more often, and it's not as much of a tool as a conversation piece. So now I'm 31 years old, and I would say I've been collecting knives seriously for about 4 years now, maybe 5 years. Maybe more towards the four. We'll say four. And the whole time, I have not been a fan of Spyderco. I've never been a fan. I never enjoyed the style of blades, the curves, like I said, and just they were very expensive as well. You know, so price was definitely a factor in my reasoning as well. And now that I have this Manix, it has completely. Sorry, I may sound like I have a cold because I do. Now that I have this Manix, it has completely changed everything. So, what I want to show you guys is after learning about Spyderco, this is where we stand. And, it didn't take long for me to go down the spider hole, if you will. So, um, like I say, these knives are there's one for everybody. When I my first Spyderco was this one. Well, it was actually this one, but I didn't carry it. So this was out of mind for a long time. So I saw this online. It was on sale. Originally 170, and I paid 130 plus tax and shipping. CDN. And I got it, and off the bat, I just didn't like it. I knew what it was when I bought it, and that's the reason I bought it. But once I held it, this handle, I saw a video too before I got it that mentioned this handle being, uncomfortable. And once I got it, I just couldn't find my spot on it. I just wasn't a fan of it. I didn't like it. And it just sat in my Armada ever since I got it. And it was kind of a shame. Like I've used it. I used it right when I got it, and I can't deny that it's quality. It was cutting through things like butter, but my user, oops, my user experience just still didn't feel right. And so moving forward, I don't know if any of you guys heard the news about Crucible potentially shutting their factories down. Those are the guys that make all the S30V, S35, S45, MagnaCut. They're the guys who make all the super steels. So apparently they were maybe going to be shutting down their factory. So I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh, I really need to get me some more MagnaCut. I'm just going to lift this camera up a bit. Sorry, guys. And so yeah, I was just saying to myself, I really need me some more MagnaCut. And of course, I wanted it at a good price and yada yada. And I stumble across the Manix 2 salt version. And I'm thinking to myself, like I wanted to like Spyderco. I'm getting into knives a lot more. I have this channel. I just knew there was something I was missing. And so I said, you know what? I love the way the handle looks on the Manix 2. I don't think it's going to be an issue whatsoever, the same way that the Resilience was. So let's go ahead and just, pull the trigger. So I order the Manix 2, and let me tell you guys that it just completely changed my idea on Spyderco. And the reason is, like I said, the ergonomics on this handle are bar none. You're not going to find anything better than this, really. And the thing about Spyderco that nobody talks about, that I've never seen anybody talk about, is that you get 3 grip positions. So you have your choke up on the forward choil here, which is, I'm a huge fan of this. I don't care if you lose a little bit of blade here. The precision you can get with this is amazing. So huge fan of this feature. Going down, now you got your regular grip. And then all these handles, they all lock in at the ring finger here. And this gives you quick motion cutting, slashing, whatever you want to call it. This is great. This is not built into any other knives. You can do it with other knives, but it's not built in the way that this is, and it's comfortable. So I'll show you. Like, same with this one. You might not have the forward choil here, but you got your choke up, you got your regular, and then you got, like I said, locks in at the ring finger. And this gives you a lot of distance, and it gives you quick motion. These knives are very well thought out. What makes them, ugly and maybe not as palatable as other knives is what makes them great. So, like I said, choke up, regular, and then locked in. So, like I said, I wish after all this time of, my collection reaches, it's in the high thousands. And I know that if I had known about Spyderco or given them a chance earlier, like I've known about them forever, but if I had given them a chance earlier, a lot of the decisions I've made knife-wise would have been different. I think maybe the bug would have been killed, as you could say. It's funny we're talking about Spydercos, but it's just, these knives really get it done. And then, so here, now we'll talk about this. An entry-level Spyderco. This is the Bird lineup, you can call it. These are very cheap. This knife is $47 plus tax, and you're going to have to pay shipping, because the only place I see selling this in Canada is Blades Canada. So, and their shipping, honestly, is just horrible. They don't ever give you free shipping. I think it's retarded. But anyways, so with this knife, it's the 8CR. And as most of you probably aren't, I'm not a fan of 8CR either. And for good reason with most companies. But with Spyderco, that isn't necessarily the case, because the same way that they use their S30V for forever now, they have that formula down pat, and that's why it's still being used. When your grandmother had a family recipe and she perfected it, nobody got bored of it because it was good, right? It worked. That's what's going on here. This steel works. It's not any more money or less money to produce many of, like, example would be MagnaCut. It doesn't cost a lot more money to produce MagnaCut. So they do offer this knife now, which is a new thing, but it still exists now. The Military 2 is available in MagnaCut for less than retail of this knife on Blades Canada. So, the argument of the S30V steel and the 8CR not being adequate, well, okay, I can see where the argument but the fact of the matter is that these steels with the super steels are kind of in the same realm to produce. And the formula they have for the S30V has been working for decades. So it's not something that should just be forgotten. Now, when it comes to the 8CR, as you can see, this knife is a little dirty. I wasn't the one carrying this when this happened, but sadly, this knife accidentally took a bleach bath. And it was probably about 18 hours it was in there. And as you can see, it still looks pretty damn good. Like, there's not much going on the blade. And the only thing that did happen was that this screw seized up. I had to get some good quality bits to open it, but it did open. Everything works. Nothing's stripped. So even that right there, I've heard a lot of people talk about stripping Spyderco screws. If this didn't strip, I don't know how the hell anybody's stripping anything, to be honest. But you could have a softer screw out of factory, but honestly, I'm super surprised that isn't stripped, because it was seized right in there. I busted a few bits trying to open it, and then I finally found. Honestly, the bits I used were the ones that Metal Complex advertises, so you guys should definitely use those, because those are the only bits I was able to use to find that were gonna be able to crack the rust in here. So take a look at those bits. If you watch him, you'll know what I'm talking about. But so an 18-hour bleach bath, and it looks like this. The person who had this they had it for a few months, and then I've had it now for a little over a month, and I've been using it periodically. I stropped it up. It's still sharp. Like, it's still really sharp. Like, maybe not super shaving. Yeah, I guess not, but it is sharp. Like, I wouldn't even, the way it is right now, I wouldn't sharpen it quite yet. Stropping it was just enough. So, like I say, this is the bird line, very cheap, but it is the 8CR. And then this is available for $100 in Canada in 8CR, as well as the Tenacious and Persistence. But those knives are worth it. I didn't think they were worth it before, but now that I see the performance of Spyderco's 8CR, even though it's being made in China, like, as well as this, people like to say that, and I would agree with this, that depending on where the steel is made, you're not getting that American quality. But I'd say that it also depends who's making it, because I don't really see, like, listen, I haven't had this knife long enough to say for sure, I guess, but it hasn't gone dull, and it shouldn't. It says 35, but I've used it quite a bit now. Like, I've put it through some tough cardboard too, and well, actually, well, never mind a test right now. But the thing is, I've used this on some really tough cardboard, and what made it work was the serrations. So that made me also start to love this knife more because, again, it works. Something that works, it's fashion over function for a lot of people, and I was one of those people. But I've changed, it's function over fashion now. And once you really get into these, like, I have no issue with the looks of these knives anymore. I really love the way Spydercos look. Even the blades, everything about it. And like I say, this downward, this spider design with the bend, like the boomerang style. When you're cutting this, the blade is moving into your cut. So instead of just pushing down, like most knives when you're moving, because they don't have um, the same geometry. So a straight knife, you're more so pushing the blade through. With this, it's swooping. So the knife is being aided just by the shape of the handle and the blade. So that's, like I said, that's what puts these over the top. And I just wish I'd given them a chance before. I was too quick to judge. And like, well, the thing is too, like I just mentioned, I was fashion over function. And I think maybe as well as the fact, I'm 31 now. So I think that may have something to do with it too, because like I'm kind of out of my, I've done it with the big knives and the combat style knives, even though this here very much combat, but very much utility. So, like as you see this tip, that's a combat tip. That's so thin. I don't really want to use it too much, but the things that this knife is intended to be used on are soft. So, like I say, all these knives have their place and their specific hand. This changed my entire opinion about Spyderco as a company, their pricing. This knife was $230 on Cutting Edge Cutlery. Me personally, they've given me a 10% code, so shout out to them. Go buy knives from them if you're from Canada. Those guys are great. I really like them. Good customer service, all of that. And good pricing too. Sometimes their pricing is a little off with Blades Canada, but anyways, besides the point. This was $230 and Magna Cut at $230. Yes, the handles are FRN, but it's not it's not a cheap knife. It doesn't feel cheap. So I just can't praise it enough. And I think price is a huge issue when it comes to Spyderco, I feel like. In general. It is. And I feel like, Magna Cut coming in at the same price as their base steel is just really cool. And it's very fair. And that's what got me into it. And once I got this, it just allowed me to appreciate what this was, you know? And now, like I said, I've fallen down the spider hole. There's $1,000 in spider knives sitting here on the table, and I couldn't be happier. So I'm extending this message to you guys. Anyone who is thinking about pulling the trigger on getting a Spyderco, just do it because you won't regret it. Okay. I regretted this one when I bought it. But what I'm trying that's why I'm making this video. There's a Spyderco for everybody. And if you live in a place where you can go and handle all these knives, definitely do so. Definitely do so. That's another thing you won't regret, because you'll find what you're looking for. You will definitely find what you want. And yeah, I think had I known that had I known anything about Spyderco sooner, because I'm the only one in my immediate circle that does, that has a passion for knives. And had I known any earlier, like I said, decisions I would have made would have been different. And hopefully I can influence you guys to get yourself a Spyderco. Don't think too much about, it's not the coolest looking knife. I don't know. Find one you like, that at least you like the look of, the feel of it, and then you'll see that these things are great, man. Once you have one of these, it might be a one and done for you, because not everybody is a collector for knives, and that's another reason I want to make this video, is that when I say there's one for everybody, there's nothing wrong with getting an expensive knife if you don't collect knives, because with cheaper steels you do have to sharpen them more often, and that's a skill that not everybody has. And what's $200 to get an S35 VM blade? And this is now that I know what I'm working with, I can really appreciate it. I took the time to handle it a lot more after I got this, and I feel slightly foolish, and I can admit that. But it is what it is. And now I'm here to tell you guys that if you're thinking about getting one of these, definitely do it, because you won't regret it. And it's just going to make your daily EDC knife experience that much better. So, anyways, guys, like and subscribe, comment if you like. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.